The millionaire baby wouldn't eat anything. The cleaner gave him breast milk, and he was saved. The baby of Singapore's richest man had gone 5 days without eating, and no one knew that tonight he would die in my arms. Those were the words Aliyah Tan never imagined she would have to utter before a judge. But that dawn of October 15, as she cleaned the marble floors of the Lim mansion in the exclusive Sentosa Cove neighborhood, everything changed forever. Aliyah was 24 years old and had only been working as a domestic helper for 3 months in that imposing 3-story residence, with gardens that looked like they were straight out of a European magazine and water fountains that cost more than everything she had earned in her life. She came from a small HDB estate in Jurong West, where poverty had taught her to value every dollar, every opportunity. 6 weeks ago, she had given birth to a daughter, a beautiful baby, who barely breathed for 4 hours before God decided to take her. The doctors at Mount Elizabeth Hospital said it had been a congenital heart malformation. Aliyah still felt the weight of those empty arms, the silence where there should have been cries, the milk her body continued to produce without anyone to feed. She desperately needed the money, the funeral debts, the rent for her tiny apartment in Ang Mo Kio, the allowance she sent to a sick mother in Johor Bahru. That's why she accepted the job at the Lim's house, despite the pain she felt every time she saw the luxurious cribs in the new heir's room. Marcus Lim owned Lim Holdings, a real estate investment empire valued at over 200 million Singapore dollars. His face frequently appeared on the covers of the Business Times and the Straits Times. A 2-year-old man with dark hair, distinguished gray streaks, a strong jawline, and gray eyes that intimidated anyone who crossed his path. His wife, Celine Neo Lim, was everything Aliyah was not. Tall, slender, with that air of superiority that only inherited wealth can give. She came from an aristocratic Peranakan family in Katong and had never worked a day in her life. Her world revolved around charity galas, exclusive spas, and dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants. They had had their first child just 2 weeks ago, Ethan Lim Neo, a baby who should have been the joy of that perfect family, but who was becoming their worst nightmare. That night, Aliyah was vacuuming the second-floor hallway when she heard the screams. It was 2 a.m. They came from the master bedroom. "I can't take this anymore, Marcus. I can't. This child is ruining my life." Celine's voice sounded hysterical, on the verge of collapse. "Calm down, please." The doctors said they would find a solution. Marcus's voice sounded tired, defeated. "He hasn't eaten for 5 days. 5? How many formulas have we tried? 1? 20? He rejects them all. He's dying, and you're asking me to calm down?" Aliyah froze. She knew something was wrong with the baby. Over the past few days, she had noticed the constant parade of pediatricians, specialized nutritionists, even a pediatric gastroenterologist who came from Gleneagles Hospital. "The Tans invited us to Bali this weekend. Do you realize I can't go? Do you realize I have to cancel everything because this child won't eat?" Celine sobbed, but there was something strange about her crying. It didn't sound like a worried mother. It sounded like someone annoyed, resentful. "Celine, he's our son. He's your son. I didn't want to get pregnant yet. You insisted. You said we needed an heir for the company to close the deal with the Dubai investors. This was your idea." Aliyah felt nauseous. How could a mother talk about her own baby like that? She would give anything, whatever it took, to have her little Leah back in her arms. Suddenly, a weak cry. Very weak. It was the baby. "There he goes again. I can't stand it anymore. I'm going to sleep in the guest room. You do something." Celine stormed out, passing Aliyah without even looking at her, in her ivory silk robe and designer slippers. Aliyah waited a few minutes. The baby's crying continued, growing weaker, more desperate. It was a sound that tore at her soul. She knew that cry. It was the cry of a child who was hungry, who needed to be fed, who needed his mother. But his mother had gone to sleep. She made a decision that would change everything. She approached the master bedroom door and knocked softly. "Mr. Lim, excuse me. Do you need help?" Marcus opened the door. His eyes were red, his hair disheveled, his shirt wrinkled. He held the baby against his chest, rocking him awkwardly. Ethan was so small, so fragile. His skin had taken on a worrying pale tone. "Aliyah, I don't know what to do. He won't eat. Nothing works. The doctors said that if he doesn't accept food soon..." His voice broke. This powerful man, capable of moving millions with a signature, was collapsing under the helplessness of not being able to save his son. "May I try something, sir?" Aliyah extended her arms instinctively. Marcus looked at her, surprised, but desperation took over. He handed her the baby. As soon as Aaliyah took Ethan into her arms, she felt something she hadn't felt since losing Leah. A connection. The baby stopped crying for a moment and opened his dark eyes, looking at her as if he recognized her, as if he knew that she understood his pain, his hunger, his need. Mr. Lim, I had a baby 6 weeks ago. She died a few hours after birth. Aaliyah felt tears rolling down her cheeks. My body still produces milk. If you allow me, if the doctors don't find another solution, I could try to breastfeed him just for tonight, just so he has something in his stomach. Marcus was in shock. He looked at Aaliyah, then at the baby, then back at Aaliyah. 1,000 thoughts must have been crossing his mind. Protocol, social classes, what his wife would say, what Singapore society would think. But then he looked at his son, that baby who had been rejecting all food for 5 days, who was weakening hour by hour, whom the best pediatricians in Singapore couldn't save. Please, Marcus whispered. Save my son, Aaliyah nodded. With the baby in her arms, she walked to the sofa in the room, sat down, and with trembling hands, adjusted the blouse of her blue uniform. She brought little Ethan to her chest. What happened next was a miracle. The baby latched on immediately. With a strength no one would have imagined in his weakened little body, he began to suckle, to feed, to live. Marcus sank into a chair, covering his face with his hands. He cried. He cried with relief, with gratitude, with emotions he didn't know how to process. Aaliyah looked at the baby as she breastfed him, feeling that terrible emptiness in her chest begin to fill again. He wasn't Leah. He could never replace her daughter. But at that moment, holding this child who needed her as much as she needed to give life, she felt that maybe, just maybe, they both could save each other. Ethan ate for 20 minutes. When he finally unlatched, his lips were wet with milk, and there was an expression of absolute peace on his little face. He fell asleep in Aaliyah's arms, breathing deeply, peacefully. For the first time in 5 days, the millionaire baby was satisfied, but neither of them, neither Marcus nor Aaliyah, imagined that this act of desperate love would unleash a storm that would destroy secrets, reveal lies, and pit two worlds that should never have crossed paths. Because Celine, Neolim, was not going to allow a simple domestic helper to become her son's salvation. And there was something else. Something Marcus didn't know yet. Something Celine had jealously hidden during all those months of pregnancy. Little Ethan held a secret in his blood. A secret that explained why he had rejected all food, except Aaliyah's. But that was yet to be discovered. The dawnlight streamed through the windows of the Lim mansion when Celine woke up in the guest room. It was 7 a.m., and for the first time in almost a week, she had managed to sleep 6 consecutive hours without interruptions, without Ethan's constant cries, without calls from doctors, without the suffocating pressure of feeling watched, judged, labeled as an incompetent mother. She looked at herself in the mirror, 38 years old, but looking younger thanks to monthly facial treatments at a high-end aesthetic clinic in Orchard Road. Her blonde hair perfectly straightened, her skin wrinkle-free thanks to strategic Botox. She had regained her pre-pregnancy figure in record time, exercising 3 hours daily with her personal trainer. The pregnancy had been a nightmare, not because of nausea or cravings, but because it meant losing control of her body, her image, her social life. Marcus had insisted so much on having an heir. The Dubai investors want to see family stability, he would say. We need to show continuity in the business. For Celine, Ethan was more of a business requirement than a desired child. She put on her cashmere robe imported from Italy and walked barefoot to the master bedroom. She expected to find Marcus exhausted, the baby crying as always, the same chaos as usual. But what she saw left her paralyzed. Marcus was asleep on the armchair by the window with a blanket over his legs, and in the $3,000 oak rocking chair, Aaliyah, the domestic helper, held Ethan against her chest. The baby slept deeply with rosy cheeks, breathing peacefully. On the side table, there was a heart rate monitor that a doctor must have left, showing completely normal vital signs. What on earth is going on here? Celine's voice cracked like a whip in the silent room. Marcus woke with a start. Aaliyah opened her eyes, startled, instinctively clutching the baby to her in a protective gesture. Celine, I can explain. Marcus quickly stood up. Explain what? Why is this woman in our room? Why does she have my son? Celine advanced with clenched fists, her normally controlled face now distorted by fury. The baby was dying. Ethan hadn't eaten for 5 days. No formula worked. Aaliyah. She offered to help. Help? What kind of help? Celine looked at Aliyah with absolute contempt. She then noticed the uniform blouse slightly open, the milk stains on the fabric, and understood. No. You're telling me you allowed this helper to breastfeed our son? You've gone completely mad. I was saving his life. Don't you understand? The doctors didn't know what to do. Dr. Tan said if he didn't eat soon, we'd have to hospitalize him with intravenous feeding. He could have suffered permanent damage. Then you should have taken him to the hospital, but not this. Do you have any idea what people will say if they find out? The neos, the investors, our friends. It'll be a scandal. Aliyah slowly stood up, with Ethan still asleep in her arms. Her voice sounded firmer than she felt. Madam Lim, I just wanted to help. The baby was hungry. I recently lost my daughter, and my body still produces milk. I didn't mean to offend you or cause problems. I just wanted the child to live. Celine looked her up and down with that disdain only someone raised in wealth can perfect. Your daughter? How convenient. And who's to say you don't have some disease? Drugs in your system? Alcohol? We know nothing about you, your life, your people. Celine, stop. Marcus stepped between the two women. Aliyah passed all the medical examinations when we hired her. She's completely healthy, and thanks to her, our son is alive and well-fed for the first time in almost a week. As if to confirm his father's words, Ethan stretched in Aliyah's arms and made a small, satisfied sound without waking. He looked completely different from the pale, weakened baby of the previous night. He had color in his cheeks, was breathing deeply, and had even gained some weight in those few hours. Celine clenched her jaw. She hated to admit it, but Marcus was right. The baby looked better, much better. All right, she finally said in a cold voice. But this ends now. I'll call Dr. Tan Kian Ming, the pediatrician to prominent families. If anyone can find a formula that works, it's him. We don't need the helper's alternative services. Mummy, a childish voice sounded from the door. It was Chloe, Marcus's 7-year-old daughter from his first marriage. A thin girl with dark hair and curious eyes identical to her father's. Why are you shouting? You woke baby Ethan. Go back to your room, Chloe, Celine ordered harshly. She had never connected with Marcus's daughter. That child who constantly reminded her that she wasn't the first wife, the first family. But I want to see my little brother. Daddy said he was sick. Marcus walked to his daughter and hugged her. He's better, princess. Much better. Miss Aliyah helped him. Chloe looked at Aliyah with those deep eyes that seemed to see more than a 7-year-old should. Did you cure my little brother? Aliyah nodded with a sad smile. I just fed him, little one. Like mothers do, Chloe said innocently. Then she looked at Celine. Why didn't you feed him? The silence that followed was deafening. Celine stiffened, her face reddening with shame and anger. Marcus cleared his throat uncomfortably. Aliyah lowered her gaze. Because there are different ways to feed a baby, Chloe, Marcus finally said. Sometimes we use bottles with special formula. Celine was. She had medical complications that prevented her from breastfeeding. It was a lie. Everyone in that room knew it. Celine had rejected the idea of breastfeeding from the start. It ruins your figure, she had said. And besides, it's primitive. That's what modern formulas are for. But modern formulas hadn't worked with Ethan. At that moment, the baby woke up, opened his eyes, and looked around disoriented. When his gaze fell on Aliyah, something extraordinary happened. He smiled, a small, barely perceptible smile, but real, and extended his tiny hand towards her face. He's hungry again, Aliyah whispered. She knew the signs, the movement of his mouth, the little sound, the way he searched with his head. Give him the bottle in the warmer, Celine ordered abruptly. If he ate last night, he'll eat from a regular bottle now. Marcus prepared the bottle with the most expensive formula on the market, imported from Switzerland. He offered it to Ethan. The baby rejected it immediately, turning his head, beginning to cry with frustration. They tried another brand, another temperature, another position. Nothing worked. Ethan cried louder and louder, arching his little body, turning red from the effort. It was the same desperate crying of the past 5 days. Please, Marcus said, looking at Aliyah with a plea in his eyes. Just one more time, just until Dr. Tan Kian Ming arrives. Celine was about to protest, but Chloe spoke first. Let her, Mummy, Celine, the baby is hungry, he'll get sick again. There was something in the girl's voice, a maturity that didn't correspond to her age. Celine looked at her with irritation but said nothing. Aliyah sat down again in the rocking chair. With smooth, natural movements, she brought the baby to her chest. Ethan calmed instantly and began to feed. His small fists relaxed, his breathing becoming deep and regular. Marcus exhaled with relief. Chloe smiled. Celine stormed out of the room. What none of them knew was that at that very moment, Auntie Kim, the 60-year-old head housekeeper, who had worked for the family for 20 years, had heard everything from the hallway, and Auntie Kim had a niece who worked at SG Insider. By the following afternoon, half of Singapore would be talking about the scandal at the Lim mansion, but there was something else, something much darker. While Ethan was feeding peacefully in Aaliyah's arms at a private clinic across town, Dr. Li Ming was reviewing the results of the blood tests he had taken from the baby days ago. His hands trembled as he read the data on his computer screen. Ethan's blood type did not match that of his parents, which was genetically impossible, unless one of them was not actually his biological father. And Dr. Li Ming had just discovered who Ethan Lim Neo's true father was. He picked up the phone with trembling hands and dialed a number he had saved for months, a number he never thought he would have to use. "Good afternoon," he said when someone answered on the other end. "I need to speak with Mr. David Chua. Tell him I have information about his son." At the Lim mansion, as the October sun streamed through the windows, illuminating Ethan's peaceful face, no one imagined that the truth was about to explode, and that when it did, it would destroy everything in its path. David Chua received Dr. Li Ming's call while having lunch at a Michelin-starred restaurant in Marina Bay Sands, one of Singapore's most renowned establishments. He was a major partner at Pinnacle Investments, the main competitor of Lim Holdings. A 4-5-year-old man, brown hair, athletic build, and a smile that had conquered dozens of married women in Singapore's high society, including Celine Neo Lim. "Are you absolutely sure?" David asked in a low voice, moving away from his table towards the private restrooms of the restaurant. "The tests don't lie, Mr. Chua. The baby's AB-negative blood type can only come from your genes. Marcus Lim is O-positive. It's biologically impossible for him to be the father." David leaned against the marble wall, processing the information. 10 months ago, he had had a tumultuous affair with Celine. They had met at a charity gala at the Fullerton Hotel. She was bored with her perfect and predictable marriage. He was fascinated by the idea of conquering the wife of his biggest business rival. What began as a dangerous game became weekly encounters at a discreet apartment in River Valley. Celine had told him she was taking contraceptives. Evidently, she had lied or been careless. "How many people know this?" David asked. "For now, only me. But I have to submit the full report to the hospital. It's protocol when there are blood incompatibilities. Someone else will see it eventually. How much do you want?" There was a silence on the other end of the line. Then Dr. Li Ming mentioned a figure, $50,000, for his silence and for altering the medical records. "Done," David said. "I'll transfer the money this afternoon, but listen closely, Dr. Li. If a single word of this leaks, you won't just lose your medical license. I have contacts who can make your life very difficult." "Understood?" "Understood, Mr. Chua." David hung up and looked at himself in the mirror. He had a son, an heir. The baby bearing the Lim surname was his. The irony was delicious and terrifying at the same time. Meanwhile, at the Sentosa Cove mansion, Aaliyah had been temporarily moved to a staff room on the same floor as Ethan's nursery. Marcus had insisted. If the baby only accepted her milk, he needed her close 24/7. Celine had exploded at the suggestion. "You expect this woman to live on our floor, in the family quarters? It's temporary, Celine, just until we find a solution. The solution is to find a formula that works. Dr. Tan Kian Ming will come tomorrow. He'll resolve this." But deep down, Celine knew no formula would work. There was something about Ethan, something she didn't understand, that connected him to Aaliyah in an inexplicable way. That night, as Aaliyah fed Ethan for the 5th time that day, Marcus entered the room with 2 cups of tea. "I thought you might need this," he said, offering her one. "Chamomile. My grandmother said it helped with milk production." Aaliyah accepted the cup with a shy smile. "Thank you, Mr. Lim. That's very kind. Call me Marcus, please. After all you've done for my son, I think we can dispense with formalities." He sat in the armchair opposite her. For the first time, Aaliyah saw him without his executive suit, without the mask of the powerful businessman. He wore jeans and a simple shirt. He looked tired, vulnerable, human. "What was your daughter's name?" Marcus asked softly. Aaliyah felt the familiar lump in her throat. "Leah." Leah Tan was born on August 28th at 3 a.m. She weighed 2.9 kilograms. She had black hair like mine and her eyes. I never got to know what color her eyes would be. She closed them before I could see them properly. I'm so sorry, Aaliyah. I can't imagine that pain. It's like a part of me died with her. The doctor said her heart wasn't properly formed, that there was nothing to do, but I felt her move inside me for 9 months. I heard her heartbeat. I dreamed of her future. And then, in a matter of hours, everything was gone. Marcus leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The father. Is there no father? Well, yes, there is, but he left when I told him I was pregnant. He was a waiter at the restaurant where I worked before. He said he wasn't ready to be a father, that he was too young. He was 26. Aaliyah laughed without humor. I was 24 and terrified, but I didn't run away. You're very brave. I'm not brave. I just do what I have to do to survive, like coming to Singapore, working in other people's homes, cleaning bathrooms for people who don't even look me in the eye. I look you in the eye, Marcus said. And it was true. His gray eyes watched her with an intensity that made her feel uncomfortable and comforted at the same time. Ethan finished eating and burped softly. Aaliyah laughed and rocked him in her arms. The baby looked at her with absolute adoration, his tiny fingers clinging to her blue blouse. It's strange, Aaliyah murmured. When I feed him, I feel as if Leah is here in some way. As if through Ethan she continues to live a little. Marcus swallowed hard. There was something deeply moving about the scene. This young woman, who had lost everything, giving life to his son with a generosity she had no obligation to offer. I'll pay you more, he said suddenly. Triple your current salary, and you'll have private medical insurance, paid holidays, everything you need. You don't have to do that, Mr. Marcus. I do it because I want to help. I know, and that's precisely why I want to do it. You are. He searched for the right words. You are exactly the kind of person Ethan needs in his life. At that moment, the door burst open. It was Celine, dressed in a Lululemon sports outfit that cost more than Aaliyah's monthly salary. She had just returned from her private Pilates class. What a touching scene, she said with sarcasm. The man of the house having tea with the helper. What's next, Marcus? Dinner together? Perhaps a show at Esplanade? Celine, don't start. No, Marcus, you don't start. It's humiliating enough that this woman is breastfeeding our son. Now you also have to make her your confidante? Aaliyah stood up with Ethan asleep against her shoulder. Excuse me, madam. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I'm going to put the baby in his crib. But Celine blocked her way. You know what? I'm fed up with this. Fed up with seeing you in my house, on my floor, with my son. Tomorrow, doctor, Tan Qianming is coming. And when he finds the solution, you'll go back to cleaning floors, which is what you're good for. Celine, enough. Marcus stood up furiously. Aaliyah is the reason our son is alive. Show some gratitude. Gratitude? For what? For doing something I should have done. Thanks for constantly reminding me that I failed as a mother. No one is saying that. They don't have to say it. I see it in everyone's eyes. In yours. In your daughter Chloe's. In the employees. Everyone thinks I'm a terrible mother because my son didn't want my milk. For the first time, Aaliyah saw something resembling vulnerability in Celine's eyes. It wasn't just arrogance or cruelty. There was pain there. Shame. The kind of wound that comes from feeling inadequate in the one thing a woman is supposed to do naturally. Madame Lim, Aaliyah said softly. No one thinks that. Sometimes babies are difficult. My cousin had the same problem with her son. It doesn't mean you're a bad mother. I don't need your pity, Celine spat. And I certainly don't need your parenting advice. You lost your baby. I still have mine. We're not the same. The words fell like knives. Aaliyah pallid, feeling every syllable like a physical slap. Marcus was paralyzed by the absolute cruelty of the statement. Get out of here, Celine, Marcus said in a dangerously low voice. Now, this is my house. It's our house. And I won't tolerate you speaking like that to someone who has only shown kindness. Get out before I say something I'll regret. Celine looked at them both with pure hatred. Then her expression changed to something more calculating, more dangerous. All right, I'm going. But know this, tomorrow when Dr. Tan Qianming comes, I'm going to demand a full investigation. I want blood tests, toxicology reports, criminal background checks. If this woman is going to be near my son, I'm going to make sure there's nothing dodgy in her past. There's nothing dodgy, Aaliyah said, with dignity. You can investigate whatever you want. Oh, I will. And when I find something, because there's always something with people like you, I'll get you out of this house and make sure you never work in any respectable residence in Singapore again." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard that Ethan woke up and started crying. As Aaliyah calmed him, rocking him gently, Marcus stared at the closed door. Their marriage had been a facade for years, but now the cracks were becoming chasms. What they didn't know was that Auntie Kim, the head housekeeper, had overheard the entire conversation, and that same night, her niece would publish an article on SG Insider's digital portal. High society scandal. Magnate Marcus Lim's wife refuses to breastfeed son. Domestic helper becomes wet nurse to millionaire heir. By the next morning, Marcus's phone wouldn't stop ringing, and David Chua would read the news over breakfast, smiling with satisfaction. His plan was taking shape. Soon, very soon, he would claim what was his. The scandal exploded like a bomb on Singaporean social media. By 8 a.m., the hashtag #MillionaireBabyScandal was already trending on X. Parenting forums debated heatedly. Some defended Aaliyah as a modern hero. Others called her an opportunist, a gold digger, even accusing her of having planned everything. Marcus discovered the article when his personal assistant, Benjamin, called him at 7:30 a.m. "Mr. Lim, we have a problem, a very big problem." On his mobile screen, Marcus read the headline, "Domestic helper breastfeeds millionaire Marcus Lim's son after wife reportedly refuses." The article was accompanied by a blurry photograph, clearly taken with a telephoto lens from somewhere in the garden, showing Aaliyah in the rocking chair by the window with Ethan in her arms. The act of breastfeeding wasn't explicitly visible, but the position and context were unmistakable. "How on earth did they get this?" Marcus roared. "The networks are going crazy, sir. International media are already picking up the story. Channel News Asia, BBC News, even the Wall Street Journal is asking for statements." Marcus rushed down the marble staircase, 2 steps at a time. He found Celine in the gourmet kitchen, drinking her green juice while browsing on her iPad. Her face was pale with fury. "Did you see it yet?" she snapped, without even greeting him. "I just found out. Celine, we have to handle this carefully." A wrong statement. And a wrong statement? "Marcus, we're the laughingstock of all Singapore. My friends have already sent me 20 messages. The president of the charity club just called to offer her support, which is her polite way of saying she wants gossip." The kitchen door opened. Aaliyah entered with Ethan, who had just woken up. Seeing the expressions on Marcus and Celine's faces, she stopped dead. "Is something wrong?" Celine let out a hysterical laugh. "Is something wrong? You're famous, Aaliyah. All of Singapore is talking about you. The little helper who saved the poor, rich baby from the vain and cruel mother." "What?" Aaliyah parleyed. Marcus showed her his phone. Aaliyah read the article and felt her legs tremble. Tears began to roll down her cheeks. "I didn't. I would never speak to the press. You have to believe me, Mr. Lim. I never." "I know," Marcus said firmly. "I know it wasn't you." Someone in this house spoke. As if summoned by black magic, Auntie Kim entered at that moment with a tray of toast. Her expression was cautious, guilty. Marcus looked directly into her eyes. "Auntie Kim, do you know anything about this?" The 60-year-old woman lowered her gaze. I didn't speak directly to the press, Mr. Lim, but it's possible I mentioned something to my niece. She works at SG Insider," Marcus completed. "You've worked here for 20 years, Auntie Kim. 20 years in which this family trusted you, and this is how you repay us? It wasn't with bad intentions, I thought. I thought people should know the truth about how Miss Aaliyah saved the baby. She deserves recognition." "Recognition?" Celine screamed. "You gave her recognition by turning us into a circus show. Do you have any idea the damage you've caused?" Auntie Kim began to cry. "I'm sorry. I'm so very sorry. I didn't think—" "You're fired," Celine said coldly. "Gather your things and leave this house before noon." "Celine, wait," Marcus intervened. "Auntie Kim has family who depend on her. I don't care. Either she goes or I go. You decide." Marcus clenched his jaw, looking at Auntie Kim with regret. "I'm sorry, Auntie Kim, but you'll have to leave. We'll pay you 3 months severance and a letter of recommendation. But after this, you can't stay." Auntie Kim nodded, sobbing, and left the kitchen. At that moment, the doorbell of the mansion rang. It was Dr. Tan Kian Ming, a leading pediatrician in Singapore, a man in his 60s with completely white hair and an impeccable reputation. Marcus led him to the main living room where Aaliyah waited with Ethan. "Dr. Tan, thank you for coming on such short notice." "Of course, Marcus. I heard about the rather unusual situation. He looked at Aliyah with professional curiosity, not judgment. "You must be the young lady who has been feeding the little one." "Yes, doctor. My name is Aliyah Tan." The doctor examined Ethan carefully, checked his vital signs, his weight, his skin color, his reflexes. After 20 minutes, he removed his stethoscope and smiled. "This baby is in excellent health. He has gained 200 grams in the last 3 days, which is remarkable considering he was previously losing weight. His vital signs are perfect." "So why does he reject every formula?" Celine asked. "There are documented cases of babies developing very specific preferences. Some reject certain flavors, textures, or even temperatures. In rare cases, the emotional bond with the feeder also plays an important role." He looked at Aliyah. "Clearly this baby feels secure with you. But there must be a formula that works," Celine insisted. "We can try. I have access to specialized formulas that are not commercially available. However, I must be honest with you." He turned to Marcus and Celine. "If the baby is thriving on breast milk, that is objectively the best nutritional option. No formula, however advanced, can fully replicate the antibodies and nutrients of human milk." "But this cannot continue indefinitely," Celine protested. It's inappropriate. Inappropriate to save a child's life?" Dr. Tan Qianming looked at her severely. "Madam Lim, I've seen many things in my 40 years of medical practice, and I assure you, a generous woman sharing her milk with a baby who needs it is nowhere near the most unusual. It is, in fact, one of the most beautiful and humane things I have witnessed." Celine pressed her lips together but said nothing. "My professional recommendation is this: continue with the current arrangement for at least 2 more months. By then, Ethan will be able to start consuming solid foods, and the transition will be easier. Meanwhile, we will try to gradually introduce 1 bottle a day, very slowly, so he gets used to it." Marcus nodded. "Thank you, doctor." After Dr. Tan Qianming left, Celine turned to Marcus with blazing eyes. 2 months? He wants this to continue for 2 more months? It's best for Ethan. And what about what's best for me? For us? For our reputation? Our reputation will recover. Our son cannot be replaced. Celine picked up her Hermes bag from the table. "I'm going to Bali. I'm going to stay with my parents for a few days. I can't be here while all of Singapore talks about me as the mother who abandoned her baby. No one is saying that. Everyone is thinking it. And you," she pointed at Aliyah, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, "you'll stay here in my house, feeding my son, taking my place." "Madam Lim, I never," Aliyah began. "Don't talk to me. I don't want to hear your voice," Celine stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the paintings on the walls shook. Marcus sank onto the sofa, covering his face with his hands. Ethan, oblivious to the drama, slept peacefully in Aliyah's arms. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered. "I'm sorry you're going through this. None of this is your fault. Maybe I should leave, find another job. You can find a professional wet nurse, someone who—" "No," Marcus looked up. "Don't go. Ethan needs you, and I need you here too." There was something in the way he said it, something that made Aliyah's heart beat faster. It wasn't appropriate. He was her employer, a married millionaire. She was just a domestic helper from a forgotten HDB estate. But at that moment, looking into each other's eyes with a sleeping baby between them, both felt that something had irrevocably changed. What neither of them knew was that David Chua was at that very moment in his Shenton Way office, reading the same article with a satisfied smile. He called his personal lawyer, Mr. Richard Lee. "Richard, I need you to prepare some documents. I'm going to request a paternity test. It's time for Marcus Lim to know the truth about his perfect heir." And in the basement of the Lim mansion, Auntie Kim was packing her belongings with tears in her eyes. Before she left, she wrote a note and slipped it under Aliyah's bedroom door. "I'm sorry for everything, but there's something you should know. Madame Celine has secrets. Secrets that explain why she hates you being here so much. Ask her about David Chua. Ask her what she was doing at the Capella Singapore every Wednesday afternoon, a year ago." Aliyah would find that note 3 hours later, and when she did, she would begin to understand that Ethan was not just a baby rejected by his mother. He was the living secret of a betrayal that was about to destroy 2 families. Aliyah found Auntie Kim's note when she returned to her room after putting Ethan down for his afternoon nap. The folded paper was on the floor by the door. Her hands trembled as she read the hastily written words. David Chua, Capella Singapore, Wednesday afternoon. Who was David Chua? The name sounded vaguely familiar, like something she had heard in hallway conversations among employees. She took out her mobile phone and searched Google. The first thing that appeared was a photograph of a handsome man on the cover of Singapore Finance Today, David Chua, the investment shark threatening Lim's empire. The article dated back 6 months and talked about the fierce competition between Pinnacle Investments and Lim Holdings for a multi-million-dollar contract in the downtown area. Alia kept searching. She found social photographs, David at charity galas, David at luxury hotel inaugurations, and then she saw an image that chilled her blood. David Chua and Celine Neo together at a Red Cross dinner 11 months ago. He had his hand on her lower back. She was smiling in a way Alia had never seen her smile with Marcus. "My God," she whispered. A knock on the door startled her. It was Chloe, Marcus's daughter. "Alia? Can I come in? I want to see my little brother." "Of course, little one. But he's sleeping." Chloe entered and sat on the edge of the bed, looking towards the crib where Ethan rested. She was a mature child for her 7 years, with those eyes that seemed to understand too much. "My mummy left," Chloe said suddenly. "My real mummy, died when I was 3, cancer." Alia sat next to her. "I'm so sorry, darling. Daddy was very sad for a long time. Then he met Celine 2 years ago. She's pretty, but she's not affectionate like my mummy was. She never hugs me, never plays with me. Sometimes adults express love in different ways." "Do you think Celine loves Ethan?" Chloe asked with that brutal, childlike honesty. Alia didn't know how to answer. Before she could, Chloe continued. "I heard Celine talking on the phone a few months ago. She was crying. She said she had made a terrible mistake, that she didn't know what to do, that he couldn't find out." "Who couldn't find out?" "I don't know, but I think she was talking about Daddy." Chloe looked at her with very serious eyes. "Do you think Celine has secrets?" Before Alia could answer, the door burst open. It was Marcus, his face distraught. "Alia, I need to talk to you." "Chloe, go to your room, please." "But Daddy now, princess." Chloe shuffled out. Marcus closed the door and leaned against it, as if he needed the physical support to keep from collapsing. "I just received a legal notice. David Chua is requesting a paternity test for Ethan." Alia's world stopped. "What does it say?" "It says he has evidence that he's the biological father, that he had a relationship with Celine, that Ethan is his son, not mine." Marcus slid down the door until he was sitting on the floor with his head in his hands. "Do you understand what this means? If it's true, if Ethan isn't mine." Alia knelt in front of him. Instinctively, she took his hands. "Marcus, breathe. You need to calm down." "How can I calm down? My wife cheated on me with my worst enemy, and the son I thought was mine." His voice broke. "Ethan, that beautiful baby sleeping in there, might not be mine. Even if he isn't biologically yours, you are his father. You were there. You worried about him when he was sick. You are the one who loves him." Marcus looked up. His gray eyes were full of tears. "How is it that you, who have suffered so much, who lost your own daughter, can be so wise and generous?" "Because pain taught me what truly matters. And it's not blood, it's love." They looked at each other for a long moment. Marcus squeezed Alia's hands. "I called Celine. I demanded she return to Singapore immediately, to explain herself." She hung up. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to take the paternity test. I need to know the truth, even if it destroys me." He stood up, helping Alia to her feet as well. "But there's something else I need you to know. No matter what I discover, no matter who Ethan's biological father is, I won't let David Chua take him away. That baby stays with me." At that moment, Ethan woke up crying. Alia walked to the crib and picked him up. The baby immediately calmed down upon recognizing her. Marcus watched them, mother and child, even if not by blood. There was more love in that image than in anything he had seen in his marriage to Celine. "Alia, there's something I want to ask you, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course. Why do you do it? Why do you stay here enduring Celine's contempt, people's stares, the scandal? You could leave, get a job in another house where you'd be treated with respect." Alia looked at the baby in her arms. Ethan watched her with those dark eyes, full of absolute trust. "Because when I feed Ethan, when I look at him, I feel that my daughter didn't die in vain. I feel that her brief life had a purpose, to prepare me to save this baby. And besides," she paused, biting her lip, I care a lot. It's not just a job. You care about Ethan, or also?" Marcus left the question hanging in the air, but his eyes said everything. Alia felt the heat rising to her face. "Mr. Lim Marcus, please, call me Marcus." "Marcus, it wouldn't be appropriate. You are my employer. You are married. My marriage ended long before you arrived. I just didn't want to see it. Celine and I were never right for each other. It was a convenient arrangement that became increasingly uncomfortable over time. Still, the conversation was interrupted by the mansion's doorbell. Marcus went downstairs and opened the door. It was a messenger, with an official envelope. Mr. Marcus Lim? Yes. Court summons. You must appear next Monday for the paternity test. Here are all the details. Marcus took the envelope with trembling hands. The messenger left. When Marcus opened the document, he found something else inside. A photograph. It was Celine and David, kissing passionately in what appeared to be the lobby of the Capella, Singapore. The date marked January 15th, exactly 9 months before Ethan's birth. Marcus felt the floor move beneath his feet. He leaned against the wall to keep from falling. Aaliyah rushed downstairs, still with Ethan in her arms. What happened? What does the document say? Marcus showed her the photograph without a word. Aaliyah looked at it and felt nauseous. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I have to talk to my lawyers. This is going to get very ugly, Aaliyah. Very ugly. There will be legal battles, media scandals, investigations, and you're going to get caught in the middle of all of this if you stay. I won't leave, Aaliyah said firmly. Ethan needs me. And I also need you. Both of you. Marcus looked at her with a mixture of gratitude, pain, and something deeper that neither of them was ready to name yet. Then prepare yourself, because the storm is just beginning. That night, as Singapore slept, 3 people remained awake. Marcus in his study, surrounded by lawyers, preparing his legal defense against David Chua. Celine in her parents' mansion in Bali, drinking wine and crying, knowing that her lies were about to blow up in her face. And David, in his luxury penthouse in Orchard Road, looking at a photograph of Ethan he had found online, touching the screen with a finger and whispering, "Soon, my son, soon you'll be where you belong." But there was something none of them knew, something that would change everything completely. Dr. Li Ming, the same one who had sold his silence to David for $50,000, had kept a copy of the blood tests. And that copy showed something he hadn't told David, something crucial. The tests indicated that David was Ethan's father, but they also showed something else in the baby's genetics, a maternal inherited blood anomaly, a rare condition that explained why Ethan rejected commercial formulas. And that same condition was present in Aaliyah's blood tests, that the hospital had archived when she gave birth to Leah. It was a condition that occurred in less than 0.1% of the Singaporean population, the same condition in Ethan and in Aaliyah, which was statistically impossible unless there was a direct family connection between them. Dr. Li Ming locked that information in his safe. Someday, he thought, it will be worth much more than the $50,000 David paid him. But he didn't know. That day would come much sooner than he imagined. Monday arrived too quickly. Marcus, Celine, and David appeared at the specialized clinical laboratory on Orchard Road, accompanied by their respective lawyers. The tension was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Aaliyah had stayed at the mansion with Ethan and Chloe. The girl hadn't gone to school that week. Marcus felt it was better to keep her away from the potentially cruel comments of other children who had undoubtedly heard their parents talking about the scandal. "Daddy?" Chloe asked, as she watched Aaliyah prepare lunch in the huge kitchen. "Yes, darling, but what if? What if it turns out Ethan isn't really my brother? Will they take him away?" Aaliyah knelt in front of the girl, taking her small hands in hers. "Listen closely, Chloe. Your daddy loves Ethan with all his heart. No matter what the papers say, that baby is your brother, and your daddy will do everything possible to keep you together. And you? You're staying too?" It was a simple, innocent question, but loaded with so much weight that Aaliyah felt tears pricking her eyes. "As long as you need me, I'll be here." Chloe hugged her tightly. "We need you very much. You're the only person who makes this house feel like a home." In the laboratory, things were significantly less emotional. Celine had arrived 30 minutes late, wearing dark sunglasses and a mink coat, even though October in Singapore was relatively warm. "You're late," Marcus said in an icy voice when she finally appeared. "The traffic from Bali was awful. You could have returned last night as I asked." "I didn't feel like seeing you." David watched the exchange with barely concealed satisfaction. He wore a dark gray custom-tailored suit that cost over $5,000. His lawyer, a bald man named Mr. Richard Lee, known for winning impossible cases using questionable methods, whispered something in his ear. "Good morning, everyone," said the supervising doctor, a geneticist named Dr. Suresh Raj. "We will proceed with the blood extractions. The process is simple and painless. The results will be ready in 72 hours. Can't you speed it up?" David asked. "I'll pay whatever it takes. Scientific processes cannot be rushed, Mr. Chua." Accuracy is more important than speed. One by one, they had blood samples taken. Marcus was first, his face impassive, but his knuckles white from clenching his fists. Celine went next, avoiding looking anyone in the eye. David was last, smiling confidently. "We also need a sample from the baby," Dr. Suresh Raj indicated. "Is it absolutely necessary?" Marcus asked. "He's a newborn." "I'm afraid so, but we'll use a very fine needle. It will be quick." Marcus called Aliyah. "Can you bring Ethan to the lab? They need a blood sample." 30 minutes later, Aliyah arrived with the baby. As she entered the lab waiting room, the tension was palpable. Celine looked at her with disdain. David, however, observed her with curiosity. "So you're the famous wet nurse," David said, standing up and approaching. "I've read a lot about you in the news." "Mr. Chua," Aliyah said politely, but coldly. "That baby looks healthy. You've done a good job." He reached out to touch Ethan, but Aliyah instinctively recoiled. "I'd rather you didn't touch him." David's smile froze. "That baby could legally be mine in a few days. I suggest you change your attitude." "That baby," Marcus intervened, placing himself between David and Aliyah, "is mine until a legal document states otherwise. And I would appreciate it if you kept your distance from him and the people who care for him." "Always so territorial, Marcus, even with things that don't belong to you." The two men stared at each other with pure hatred. Mr. Richard Lee had to intervene, placing a hand on David's shoulder. "Gentlemen, we are in a professional setting. Let's maintain composure." Dr. Suresh Raj entered at that moment. "Miss Tan, please come in with the baby." Aliyah entered the extraction room. Dr. Suresh Raj was surprisingly gentle, distracting Ethan with a colorful toy while extracting a small blood sample from his heel. The baby cried briefly but calmed when Aliyah cradled him against her chest. "Done," the doctor said. "You may leave. We will call you on Thursday with the results." As Aliyah left with Ethan, she overheard raised voices. Marcus and Celine were arguing in a corner of the waiting room. "How could you do this to me?" Marcus's voice trembled with contained rage. "How long did it last? How many times in our bed?" "Never in our bed," Celine replied in a tired voice. "It was always at the Capella Singapore. On Wednesdays." "Wednesdays? I thought you were at your Pilates class." "I haven't been to Pilates in 2 years, Marcus. I thought you would have noticed." "Why? Why did you do it?" Celine finally took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red, swollen from crying. "Because you were never really with me. You were always working or with Chloe or thinking about your late wife. I was just an accessory, the trophy wife for your business events." "That's not true." "No? When was the last time you asked me how I was? What I felt? What I wanted from life? For you, it was only important that I looked good in photographs and that I organized the perfect dinners. So the solution was to sleep with my competitor, get pregnant by him? I didn't plan to get pregnant, it was an accident. And when I found out, it was too late to." She stopped. "To what? To terminate the pregnancy?" Marcus looked at her in horror. "You considered it?" "Of course I considered it, but then you were so excited about the idea of an heir. All the investors were asking about my pregnancy. And David said it was better to keep it a secret, that no one had to know." "He knew from the beginning?" "Of course, he knew. He's his son." The words fell like bombs. Aliyah, who had been listening unwillingly from the hallway, felt her heart sink. She looked at Ethan, so innocent, so oblivious to the chaos his mere existence had caused. David then appeared, his arrogant smile intact. "Celine, darling, you shouldn't reveal all our secrets yet. There's still a lot to negotiate." "Negotiate?" Marcus advanced towards David, but his lawyer stopped him. "Mr. Lim, any act of violence would harm your legal position." Marcus breathed heavily, trying to control himself. "If the results confirm you're the father, I'm going to destroy you, David. You and your company. I'll use every contact, every resource, every dollar I have. Go ahead. But remember that the judge will evaluate who is more fit to raise the child. A stable, successful man, without public scandals, or a humiliated cuckold who is on all the front pages as the cheated husband." David moved dangerously close. "Besides, I have something you don't have." "What?" "The child's mother's love. Celine will come with me when I win custody. We'll be a complete family. You'll be alone, Marcus, as you've always been." Celine did not contradict David's words, and that silence was more painful than any verbal admission. Marcus turned and left without another word. Aliyah quickly followed him with Ethan in her arms. She caught up with him in the parking lot. Marcus was leaning against his Mercedes, his hands covering his face. He sobbed. This powerful man, this business magnate, cried like a child. Aliyah approached, said nothing, just stood next to him with Ethan between them, offering her silent presence. After several minutes, Marcus looked up. You heard everything? Yes. Then you know I'm probably going to lose. David is right. If Celine testifies in his favor, if they present evidence that they are a stable couple, then you'll fight. You don't give up without a fight. Why? Why should I fight for a son who isn't even biologically mine? Aliyah put a hand on his arm. Because love isn't in the DNA, Marcus. It's in the sleepless nights, in the worries, in wanting the best for him, regardless of personal cost. You are his father in every way that matters. Marcus looked at her. He really looked at her. He saw a young woman who had lost everything and still found ways to give love. He saw strength and kindness. He saw everything Celine never was. How is it possible that in the midst of all this hell, you are the only good thing that has happened to me? Aliyah felt the heat in her cheeks. Marcus, I know it's inappropriate. I know the timing is terrible. But I need you to know that you have changed something in me. In this house. In everything. Before Aliyah could respond, Marcus's phone rang. It was his lead lawyer, Benjamin Wong. Marcus, we have a bigger problem. David just filed an emergency motion. He wants temporary custody of Ethan immediately. He claims that while you are emotionally unstable and the baby depends on a helper for food, he can provide a more stable environment. Can he do that? He already did. We have a court hearing tomorrow at 10 a.m. You need to prepare. Marcus hung up and looked at Aliyah with despair. They're going to try to take him from me tomorrow. But what neither of them knew was that Dr. Li Ming was at that very moment looking at Ethan's blood tests on his computer. And he had found the anomaly, the genetic connection between Ethan and Aliyah. He picked up the phone and dialed a number. It was time to raise the price of his silence. This information was worth much more than $50,000. This information was worth millions, and it was about to change the fate of everyone involved. The courtroom of District Court No. 12 at the State Courts building in Havelock Square was packed. Reporters, curious onlookers, and lawyers filled every available corner. The Lim Chua case had become the scandal of the year, and everyone wanted to witness the drama firsthand. Marcus entered dressed in his best bespoke suit, but the dark circles under his gray eyes betrayed that he hadn't slept in days. His legal team surrounded him, Benjamin Wong and 2 more lawyers specializing in family law. David arrived minutes later, smiling with that irritating confidence, accompanied by Mr. Richard Lee and Celine. She wore a cream Chanel suit, her hair perfectly styled, impeccable makeup. She looked more like a model on a runway than a mother in a custody dispute over her child. Aliyah was sitting in the public benches, with Ethan asleep on her lap. Chloe was at the mansion with a temporary nanny. Marcus had insisted that Aliyah bring the baby. The judge needs to see that Ethan is healthy, well cared for, and you are the reason for that. Justice Tan So-hwa entered the courtroom. She was a woman in her 50s, with a serious expression and a reputation for being implacable but fair. She had handled some of Singapore's most complicated custody cases. Good morning. This is an extraordinary proceeding requested by Mr. David Chua to determine temporary custody of the minor Ethan Lim Neo until definitive paternity is resolved. Mr. Lee, you may begin. Mr. Richard Lee stood up, adjusting his Italian tie. Your Honor, my client seeks the best for the minor. The facts are clear. Mr. Marcus Lim is going through a severe emotional crisis resulting from the discovery of his wife's infidelity. His mental state is unstable. Furthermore, the baby is completely dependent on a domestic helper for his feeding, which creates an unhealthy dependency situation. Do you have evidence of Mr. Lim's alleged unstable mental state? Justice Tan So-hwa asked. Testimonies from employees who have seen him crying, shouting, behaving erratically. Also, Your Honor, the minor is being breastfed by a woman who is not his mother, an employee. This raises serious concerns about appropriate boundaries and professionalism. Benjamin Wong stood up. Objection. Miss Aliyah Tan saved the baby's life when no doctor could find a solution. She is not just any employee. She is the reason that child is alive today. Understood, Justice Tan So-hwa said. Mr. Lee, what does your client propose as an alternative? Mr. Chua and Madam Lim are prepared to provide a stable home for the minor. A professional wet nurse has already been hired. The baby would receive care from both biological parents in an appropriate family environment. Justice Tan So-hwa looked at Celine. Madam Lim, do you confirm that you wish to move in with Mr. Chua and take your son with you? Celine stood up. Her voice sounded rehearsed, mechanical. Yes, Your Honor. I made mistakes in my marriage, but my priority has always been Ethan's well-being. David is his biological father, and together we can give him a complete family. And your daughter Chloe, Mr. Lim's daughter from his first marriage, how would this affect her relationship with her brother? Celine hesitated. She clearly hadn't considered that question. Well, Chloe is not my biological daughter. She would stay with Marcus, I suppose. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Even Justice Tan So-hwa frowned at the coldness of the response. Marcus clenched his fists under the table. Benjamin Wong seized the moment. Your Honor, that precisely proves our point. Madame Lim is willing to separate two siblings, to tear the baby away from the only home he has known, from his sister who adores him. Is that acting in the best interest of the minor? Mr. Wong, present your case, Justice Tan So-hwa ordered. With pleasure, Your Honor. Mr. Lim has been Ethan's father from the moment of his birth. He was present at every medical visit, every sleepless night, every critical moment when the baby was sick. Biology does not define fatherhood, love does. And the baby's dependence on the domestic helper, Miss Aliyah Tan. Benjamin motioned towards where Aliyah was. Is a 4-year-old woman who lost her own baby 2 months ago. When Ethan was literally starving, she offered her breast milk without expecting anything in return. She has been medically evaluated, is completely healthy, and the baby is thriving under her care. Justice Tan So-hwa looked towards Aliyah. Miss Tan, can you approach with the baby, please? Aliyah felt her legs tremble as she walked towards the stand. Ethan woke up in her arms, looking around with curiosity. Miss Tan, is it true that you breastfeed this baby? Yes, Your Honor. Why do you do it? What do you get out of this? Aliyah looked at Ethan, then at the judge. I get nothing material, Your Honor. I do it because when my daughter died, I felt a part of me died with her. When I had the opportunity to save Ethan, I felt that my daughter had not died in vain, that her brief life had a purpose. There was silence in the room. Even some reporters had tears in their eyes. Do you have an emotional attachment to the baby? Yes, Your Honor, very much. And with Mr. Lim? The question dropped like a bomb. Aliyah felt the heat rising to her face. I respect Mr. Lim very much. He is a good man and a loving father. That doesn't answer my question, Miss Tan. Before Aliyah could respond, the courtroom door burst open. A man in his 40s, dressed in a doctor's coat, entered hastily. Excuse me, Your Honor. My name is Dr. Li Ming. I have crucial information about this case that must be heard immediately. Justice Tan So-hwa frowned. Dr. Li, this is highly irregular. Who gave you permission to interrupt these proceedings? No one, Your Honor, but what I have to say will completely change this case. I have evidence of a genetic connection between the baby and Miss Aliyah Tan. Chaos erupted in the courtroom. Reporters shouted questions. Marcus stood up. David paled. Celine froze. Order. Justice Tan So-hwa banged her gavel. Dr. Li, approach. And this better be legitimate, or I will hold you in contempt. Dr. Li Ming walked to the stand, pulling several documents from a manila envelope. Your Honor, I performed blood tests on baby Ethan 2 weeks ago. During the standard procedure, I discovered a rare blood anomaly, a condition called Bombay phenotype, which affects less than 0.01% of the population. And what does that have to do with Miss Tan? I reviewed the records of Mount Elizabeth Hospital, where Miss Tan gave birth 2 months ago. Her tests show the same anomaly. The statistical probability of 2 unrelated people having this condition and finding themselves in this exact situation is approximately 1 in 10 million. Aliyah felt the world spin. What are you saying? I am saying that you and baby Ethan share an extremely rare genetic marker, which suggests a direct family relationship. That's impossible, David shouted. I am the child's father. The tests will confirm it. You may be the biological father, Mr. Chua, but there is evidence that Miss Tan could be related to the baby through the maternal line. Celine stood up, trembling. That's ridiculous. I am the mother. I gave birth to Ethan. There are hospital records, witnesses. Unless, Doctor. Li Ming paused dramatically. Unless there was a baby swap. The silence that followed was absolute. No one breathed. No one moved. What? Aliyah whispered. Miss Tan, where did you give birth to your baby? At Mount Elizabeth Hospital, Level 3, Maternity Ward. What day? August 28th. Doctor. Li Ming looked at Celine. And you, Madame Lim? Celine was pale as a ghost. August 28th, Mount Elizabeth Hospital. Level 3. The same day, the same hospital, the same floor. Dr. Li Ming let the information sink in. There was a chaotic night shift that night. A new nurse, 2 babies born minutes apart, and now 2 babies with inexplicable connections. Marcus slowly approached Aaliyah. Are you saying I'm saying it's possible there was a mix-up, that the baby who died was not Miss Tan's daughter, and that Ethan is my son? Aaliyah finished, tears rolling down her cheeks. Ethan is my biological son! The courtroom exploded in total chaos. Justice Tan So-hwa banged the gavel uselessly, trying to restore order. David looked at Dr. Li Ming with pure hatred. How much did they pay you to say this? Was it Lim? How much? No one paid me to tell the truth, although you paid me $50,000 to hide it. Dr. Li Ming looked directly at David. Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Chua bribed me to alter medical records. I have the bank transfers as evidence. Justice Tan So-hwa stood up. This hearing is adjourned. Dr. Li Ming will be taken into custody while we verify his claims. Mr. Chua, do not leave Singapore, and someone obtain an order to exhume the body of the baby who died. We need definitive DNA evidence. Aaliyah collapsed into a chair, hugging Ethan against her chest. The baby, oblivious to all the drama, looked at her with those dark eyes full of love. My baby, Aaliyah sobbed. My Leah didn't die. My baby is alive. Marcus knelt in front of her, taking her hands. Aaliyah, if this is true, if Ethan is really your son, then everything makes sense, she whispered. That's why he accepted me. That's why he rejected everything else. It wasn't just the milk, it was the connection. Mother and child always know. Celine watched the scene from afar with an indecipherable expression. David had stormed out of the room, followed by his lawyer. And at that moment, as Aaliyah cried, embracing the baby she thought she had lost, as Marcus realized he might lose the child he loved, and as Celine understood that her whole life was a lie, no one noticed the older woman sitting in the back row. It was Nurse Sarah Ng, the nurse who had been on duty that night of August 28th. The one who had confused the identification bracelets of 2 babies because she was tired, because she was new, because life sometimes makes cruel mistakes. She had lived with that guilt for 2 months. She had seen the news. She had recognized Aaliyah. And now, finally, the truth was coming to light. She stood up silently and left the room. Outside, she breathed the fresh October air and cried, because some truths, though necessary, destroy entire worlds. The next 3 days were hell for everyone involved. The media went completely insane. The #BabySwap scandal was trending worldwide. Television programs debated the case for hours. Legal experts, child psychologists, and family rights activists opined ceaselessly. Aaliyah locked herself in the Lim mansion, refusing to speak with reporters. Marcus had hired additional security after 3 television crews tried to enter the property without permission. The exhumation of the body of the baby who had died took place on Tuesday morning. Aaliyah could not be present. The idea of seeing the coffin opened, of physically confronting the possibility that it was not her daughter, was too much. Marcus was with her all that day, sitting in the garden, watching Ethan sleep in his stroller, not talking much, just existing in that shared space of uncertainty. What will happen if it's true? Aaliyah finally asked, if Ethan is really biologically mine, that means David has rights over him? Marcus had been thinking exactly the same thing. I don't know. Legally, it's incredibly complicated. You would be the biological mother, David, the biological father of the baby who died, and the legal father, until now, is me. And Celine? Celine gave birth to another baby who died. Poor woman, Aaliyah whispered. Despite everything she's done to me, I can't imagine her pain now. She carried a baby for 9 months, gave birth, and that baby died, and she never knew. Celine hasn't left her room in the hotel where she's staying. Her mother called. Says she's sedated under psychiatric supervision. Chloe appeared in the garden in her school uniform. She had been sent back to school to maintain some normalcy. Daddy, the kids at school are saying ugly things. Marcus hugged her. What kind of things, princess? That Celine is bad. That Aaliyah stole the baby. That we're weird. Tears ran down her cheeks. Ethan is going to stay with us, right? I don't know, darling, but I'm going to do everything I can to make it so. Chloe broke free from her father and walked towards Aaliyah. She took her hand. If Ethan is really your baby, I'm glad, because that means your baby didn't die, and you're good. You'll be an amazing mummy. Aaliyah began to cry, hugging the girl. Thank you, Chloe. That means a lot to me. On Thursday morning, Everyone was summoned back to the courthouse. The DNA results were ready. The room was even more crowded than the previous time. Justice Tan So-hwa entered with a severe expression, carrying a sealed envelope. This case has garnered national and international attention. I want to make it clear that this court makes decisions based solely on evidence and in the best interest of the minor. I don't care about headlines or public opinion. She opened the envelope, reading silently for several seconds that seemed eternal. The DNA results are conclusive. The baby who passed away on August 28th was not the biological daughter of Aaliyah Tan. She was the biological daughter of Celine Neo and David Chua. Selena let out a gasp of pain. Her mother, sitting next to her, hugged her as she sobbed. The baby, known as Ethan Lim Neo, is the biological son of Aaliyah Tan and a man named Darren Lim, the father who abandoned Miss Tan during her pregnancy. The silence was absolute. Aaliyah felt she couldn't breathe. "Wait," David said, standing up. "Are you saying the baby isn't mine?" "Correct, Mr. Chua. You are the father of the baby who passed away, not the baby who survived." David slumped into his chair, pale. His whole plan, his whole strategy crumbled in seconds. The nurse responsible for the swap, Nurse Sarah Ng, has submitted a full statement, admitting her error. That night, there were 2 almost simultaneous births, 2 male babies. In the midst of the confusion and her inexperience, she placed the identification bracelets incorrectly. Justice Tan So-hwa looked at Aaliyah. "Miss Tan, legally you are Ethan's biological mother. However, Mr. Lim has been the legal father for these 2 months, and the biological father, Mr. Darren Lim, apparently has no interest in exercising his parental rights. I don't even know where he is," Aaliyah said in a trembling voice. "He left when I told him I was pregnant. He hasn't tried to contact me. In that case, we have a unique situation. A biological mother who thought her son had died, a legal father who loved this baby believing him to be his own, and no biological father present." Benjamin Wong stood up. "Your Honor, my client requests to maintain legal custody of the minor. He has been the only father Ethan has known." "Objection," said the lawyer, now representing Aaliyah, a man named Mr. Thomas Kiek, whom Marcus had hired for her. "My client is the biological mother. She has primary right to her son." Justice Tan So-hwa took off her glasses. "This is one of the most complex cases I have seen in 30 years of practice. Miss Tan, Mr. Lim, please approach." Both stood up and walked to the stand. Ethan was with a nanny in the adjoining waiting room. "Miss Tan, what do you wish to do?" Aaliyah looked at Marcus. She saw the terror in his gray eyes, the fear of losing the child he had cared for since the first second of life. Then she thought of her own loss, of the 2 months she had spent believing Leah was dead. I want my son. Of course I want him, but..." Her voice broke. "But Mr. Lim loves him. He has cared for him, and I wouldn't have any of the resources he has. I live in a tiny apartment. I work cleaning houses. I can't give him the life Marcus can offer him. Money isn't the only thing that matters in raising a child, Miss Tan. I know, but Marcus is a good man, a loving father, and Ethan has a sister who adores him. How can I separate them?" Marcus impulsively took Aaliyah's hand. "There's another option, Your Honor, which is shared custody." Aaliyah could move into the mansion, not as an employee, but as Ethan's mother. "She and I would raise the child together. He would have both parents, his sister, stability. Mr. Lim, you are still legally married to Madam Celine Lim. I will file for divorce this week for infidelity and deception." Justice Tan So-hwa looked at Celine. "Madam Lim." Celine stood up slowly. Her eyes were empty, as if something inside her had broken permanently. "I'm not going to fight. My baby died. The child I thought was mine isn't. I have nothing left to fight for." David tried to approach her, but Celine rejected him. "Don't touch me. You knew there could be a confusion. The doctors told you when they saw the blood anomaly, but it suited you better for Ethan to be Marcus's son. More scandal, more damage to his company. David, my baby died because of you. If I hadn't been stressed about hiding the affair, if I had had better prenatal care, maybe my child would have survived." Celine turned to the judge. "Approve whatever is best for Ethan. I'm going back to Bali. I don't want to know anything about any of you." She left the courtroom, escorted by her mother. David followed her with his gaze, and for the first time, he looked vulnerable. He had lost everything. His child had died. The woman he loved hated him. His reputation was destroyed by bribing Dr. Li Ming. Justice Tan So-hwa deliberated for several minutes. "This is my temporary decision, subject to review in 6 months. Aliyah Tan regains all maternal rights over the minor. Marcus Lim will maintain shared legal custody for the next 6 months, while an appropriate family dynamic is established. Miss Tan, do you agree to move into Mr. Lim's residence to facilitate joint upbringing? Aliyah looked at Marcus. He nodded, squeezing her hand. Yes, Your Honor, I accept. Then, so be it. Court is adjourned. The gavel fell, and with that sound, everything changed. Aliyah had her son back. Marcus kept the child he loved. And together, somehow, they would have to find a way to become a family. As they left the courthouse, reporters surrounded them. Cameras flashed. Questions flew from all directions. Miss Tan, how do you feel about getting your son back? Mr. Lim, are you divorcing Celine? Is it true you're living together? Marcus put his arm protectively around Aliyah, guiding her towards the car. Benjamin and the rest of the security team blocked the reporters. Once inside the Mercedes, with the tinted windows shielding them from curious glances, Aliyah finally allowed herself to cry. She cried, for the 2 lost months, for the unnecessary pain, for Celine's baby who had died without anyone knowing. I'm going to reclaim that time, she swore. Every second I lost with Ethan, I'm going to reclaim it. Marcus hugged her. We'll do it together, I promise you. And as the car drove away from the courthouse towards the mansion in Sentosa Cove, towards the baby waiting for them, towards a life neither of them had planned, but which perhaps was exactly what they both needed, neither noticed the black car following them at a distance. Inside that car was Darren Lim, Ethan's biological father, the same man who had abandoned Aliyah 2 years ago. He had seen the news. He had seen that his son was alive, and that now that son lived in a millionaire's mansion. Darren smiled as he lit a cigarette. He had been working in construction in Singapore for these 2 years, barely surviving, but now he had a son, a rich son, a son who was worth gold. And Darren Lim had never been good at turning down opportunities. 3 weeks after the court ruling, life at the Lim mansion had found a new rhythm. Aliyah no longer slept in the staff room. Marcus had given her the master suite on the 3rd floor with garden views and an adjoining room perfect for Ethan's nursery. The adjustment hadn't been easy. Aliyah still felt uncomfortable being served by other employees, many of whom had been her colleagues just a month ago. But little by little, with Marcus's patience and Chloe's unconditional support, she began to feel that maybe, just maybe, she belonged there. It was a Saturday morning in November. Aliyah was in the garden with Ethan, enjoying the autumnal sun. The baby had grown noticeably. His cheeks were full and rosy. His eyes shone with intelligence. He already weighed almost 5 kilograms. Look, my love, Aliyah said to him, showing him the golden leaves falling from the trees. Autumn is magical, isn't it? He looks happy. Aliyah turned. It was Marcus walking towards her with 2 cups of coffee. He wore jeans and a wool sweater, more relaxed than she had ever seen him. Thank you, she said, accepting the cup. He's growing so fast. Sometimes I'm afraid of missing an important moment. That's why we're in this together, to make sure neither of us misses anything. Marcus sat on the bench next to her. How do you feel? With all of this? I mean, do you regret agreeing to move here? No, never. But sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life. 3 months ago, I was cleaning floors. Now I live in a mansion. I have my own lawyer. The media calls me the miracle mother. You're more than that, Aliyah. You're brave, generous, incredibly strong. Their gazes met. There was something in the air between them, something that had been growing for weeks, but which neither dared to name. Marcus, Aliyah began, but she was interrupted by Chloe, who came running out of the house. Daddy, Aliyah, there's a man at the door. He says he needs to speak to you. He says he's Ethan's daddy. Aliyah's heart stopped. What? Marcus stood up immediately, his expression turning serious. Chloe, take Ethan inside. Now. The girl obeyed, though clearly scared. Aliyah followed Marcus to the main entrance, where one of the security guards was holding a man. Darren Lim looked exactly as Aliyah remembered him, only more disheveled. He had longer hair, several days' beard, wrinkled clothes, but those honey-colored eyes were the same ones that had captivated her 2 years ago. Aliyah, Darren said with that smile that had once seemed charming to her. You look good. The millionaire life suits you. What are you doing here, Darren? Aliyah's voice trembled with contained rage. I came to meet my son. I have rights, you know? I saw the news. All of Singapore knows I'm the biological father of the millionaire baby. Marcus stepped between Darren and Aliyah. The same baby you abandoned when he was in his mother's womb. You have no rights here. Oh, but I do. I consulted with a lawyer. I can request shared custody, visits, child support. Darren smiled maliciously. Or we can reach a more civilized agreement. How much do you want? Marcus asked directly. $500,000 and signed documents permanently relinquishing all my paternal rights. It's a bargain, considering I could ask for much more in court. You're despicable, Aaliyah spat. How can you do this? Use your own son for extortion? He's not my son, Aaliyah. He's a means to an end. I didn't want to be a father 2 years ago, and I don't want to be one now. But if the universe gives me an opportunity to improve my life, I'd be foolish not to take it. Marcus pulled out his phone. Carlos, come to the main entrance. We have an intruder. I'm not an intruder, Darren protested. I'm the biological father. I have every right to be here. Not on private property without an invitation. 2 security guards appeared. Escort Mr. Lim off the property. If he returns, call the police. As they led him out, Darren shouted towards Aaliyah, think carefully. Either you pay me or I'll see you in court. And believe me, judges favor the rights of biological parents. When they finally left, Aaliyah collapsed against Marcus, trembling. He hugged her, feeling her sob against his chest. He can't take him from me. Not after everything. I can't lose Ethan again. You won't. I promise you. Marcus held her tighter. I'm going to talk to Benjamin. We'll find a way to neutralize Darren. That night, after putting Ethan and Chloe to bed, Marcus and Aaliyah met in the study with Benjamin Wong. The situation is complicated, the lawyer admitted. Darren has biological rights. If he requests a formal paternity test and establishes custody, he legally has a right to visitation at minimum. What if we pay him? Marcus asked. That would technically be extortion, illegal. But, Benjamin paused. If he voluntarily agrees to relinquish his rights in exchange for an agreed sum, presenting it as a mutual agreement, it could work. I don't want to give him a single dollar, Aaliyah said bitterly. He doesn't deserve it. You're right. He doesn't deserve it. But sometimes we have to swallow our pride to protect what we love most. Marcus took Aaliyah's hand. $500,000 is a lot of money, but for me, it's nothing compared to the peace of mind of knowing Ethan will be safe. What if he comes back asking for more? What if this never ends? Benjamin intervened. That's why the agreement must be watertight. Total and irrevocable relinquishment of paternal rights, a confidentiality clause. If he violates any term, he must return the money multiplied by 3. Prepare the documents, Marcus ordered, but investigate him first. I want to know everything about Darren Lim, where he lives, where he works, if he has debts, a criminal record, everything. Over the next few days, while waiting for the report on Darren, the tension in the house was palpable. Aaliyah barely slept, constantly checking the locks, making sure the guards were alert. Marcus noticed the dark circles under her eyes, how she startled at any noise. One night he found her in Ethan's room at 3 a.m., simply watching him sleep. You can't live like this, he said softly from the doorway. I'm afraid that one day I'll wake up and he won't be there, that Darren will find a way to snatch him from me. Marcus entered the room and stood beside her, looking at the baby who slept peacefully. Aaliyah, I need to tell you something, and maybe it's not the right time, but if I don't say it now, I think I'm going to explode. What is it? These last 2 months. Seeing you with Ethan, seeing you with Chloe, sharing everything with you. I've realized something. He turned to look at her directly. I've fallen in love with you. Aaliyah felt her heart stop. Marcus, I know it's complicated. I know I'm still technically married, although Celine signed the divorce papers last week. I know you started as my employee, that there are differences in class, age, everything, but none of that matters to me. The only thing that matters is that when I'm with you, I feel like I'm finally in the right place. I feel something for you too, Aaliyah admitted, tears rolling down her cheeks. But I'm so scared. Scared that this is too fast. Scared of ruining it. Scared that one day you'll wake up and realize you made a mistake. The only mistake I made was not telling you sooner. Marcus wiped away her tears with his thumb. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm just asking you to give me a chance, to see where this takes us. Aaliyah looked at him, at those gray eyes that had gone from intimidating her to making her feel safe. She thought of everything they had been through together, how he had never treated her as less, how he loved Ethan as if he were his own. All right, she whispered. A chance. Marcus smiled, and at that moment, with the moonlight streaming through the window and Ethan sleeping between them, he leaned in and kissed her. It was a kiss full of promises and hope. When they broke apart, Aaliyah rested her forehead against his. What are we going to do about Darren? We're going to give him his money. We're going to make him sign those papers, and then we're going to forget he exists. Marcus gave her another kiss on the forehead. And we're going to be a family. You, me, Ethan, and Chloe, a real family. The next day, Benjamin arrived with his report on Darren. He had gambling debts of $100,000. He had been living with different women in Singapore. No lasting relationships, temporary jobs, nothing stable. He's a loser looking for a lucky break, Benjamin concluded. But that makes him dangerous. Desperate people are unpredictable. Then let's give him what he wants, Marcus decided, but with our conditions and with police supervision present when he signs the documents. The meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. In Benjamin's office, with a notary present and 2 police officers as witnesses, Darren Lim signed the complete relinquishment of his paternal rights over Ethan. $500,000, Darren said, checking the bank transfer on his phone. Pleasure doing business with you. If you ever approach Aliyah, Ethan, or any member of my family again, this transfer will automatically reverse and will sue you for 3 times the amount. Understood? Marcus's voice was cold steel. Perfectly understood. Don't worry, you'll never see me again. Darren looked at Aliyah one last time. I hope you're happy, truly. You were always too good for me. And with that, he walked out of their lives forever. Aliyah felt as if an enormous weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Marcus hugged her right there in the office. It's over, he whispered. Finally, it's over. But as they celebrated their victory, neither noticed the envelope that had arrived that morning at the mansion. A letter sent from Bali. It was from Celine, and what it contained would change everything once more. Celine's letter remained unopened on Marcus's desk for 2 days. Every time he passed it, he felt a mixture of curiosity and dread. Finally, one afternoon, while Aliyah was in the garden with the children, he mustered the courage and opened it. Dear Marcus, I know I don't deserve your attention, much less your forgiveness, but I need to write this before I can move on with my life. For months, I've been in intensive therapy. My psychiatrist says I suffer from severe depression, and I've probably had it for years without treatment. That doesn't excuse my actions, but perhaps it explains them. I never loved you as you deserve to be loved. I married you for the wrong reasons: security, status, escaping my family's expectations. And when I became pregnant with David's child, I panicked, not because of the baby, but because of losing everything I had built. The irony is cruel. The baby I carried in my womb for 9 months, the one I felt move, the one I dreamed of knowing, died, and I never knew. For 2 months, I believed my son was alive, that he was simply rejecting me as a mother. Now I understand that the universe punished me in the most painful way possible. I'm not writing to apologize. I don't deserve it. I'm writing because I want you to know that Aliyah is everything I could never be. She is genuine, loving, brave. Take care of her and tell her I'm sorry for all the pain I caused her. I also write because I need you to know something about Chloe. She was never just your first wife's daughter to me. She was a constant reminder that I wasn't the first, that I would never be enough. But now, in therapy, I realize how cruel I was to an innocent child who only wanted love. If you can, tell her I'm sorry, that she always deserved more than I gave her. I've decided to stay in Bali. My family has connections here, and I'm going to start over. Maybe someday I can look at myself in the mirror without hating myself. The divorce is signed. I don't want anything from you. I just want peace. Take care of Ethan and tell Aliyah that thanks to her, I now know what true maternal love is. I saw it in every look she gave that baby, even when she believed he wasn't hers. With regret and something akin to gratitude, Celine. Marcus finished reading with tears in his eyes. It was strange. He had hated Celine for weeks, but this letter showed a broken woman, finally confronting her demons. That night, after dinner, he gathered everyone in the living room, Aliyah, Chloe, and Ethan in his playmat on the floor. I received a letter from Celine, he announced. Chloe, there's something she wants you to know. He read the relevant part of the letter to the girl. Chloe listened in silence, processing the words. She really is sorry? She finally asked. I think so, Princess. People make mistakes, sometimes very big mistakes, but the important thing is whether they learn from them. Chloe remained thoughtful for a moment. Then she went to Aliyah and snuggled next to her. I'm glad you're here. You're a better mummy than Celine. Aliyah hugged the girl, feeling tears threatening to fall. I'll never try to replace your real mummy, Chloe, but I promise I'll always love you. I know. That's why I'll call you Mummy Aliyah, like kids do with their stepmoms in movies, but in the nice way. Marcus watched the scene with a full heart. His broken family had rebuilt itself in the most unexpected way. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The following months brought beautiful changes. Marcus's divorce was finalized in January. By March, He officially proposed to Aaliyah in the same garden where she had saved Ethan that first night. "I know it's fast," Marcus said, kneeling with a diamond ring that had belonged to his mother, his first wife. "I know all of this has been crazy, but I also know that I don't want to spend another day without you officially being my family." Aaliyah cried, laughed, and said yes 1,000 times. They married in an intimate ceremony in May, with only close friends and family. Chloe was the bridesmaid, dressed in a beautiful lavender dress. Ethan, now 8 months old, crawled everywhere in his little suit. Aaliyah's mother traveled from Johor Bahru, still unable to believe the turn her daughter's life had taken. "My girl, the domestic helper, marrying a millionaire," she said through tears. "It's like a fairy tale." "It's not a fairy tale, Mum," Aaliyah corrected. "Fairy tales don't have so much pain. This is real life. Complicated, painful, but also beautiful." During the reception, Marcus gave a speech that left everyone in tears. "A year ago, my life was perfect on paper. I had money, success, a family that looked good in photographs, but I was empty inside. Then came Aaliyah, a woman who had lost everything but still had room in her heart to save my son. We didn't know then that he was her son too. Maybe fate knew. Maybe there was a reason why she was exactly where she needed to be that night. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe some people are meant to meet. And I was meant to find this extraordinary woman who taught me that true love has nothing to do with blood, money, or status. It has to do with being present, with choosing to stay, with loving unconditionally." He raised his glass. "To Aaliyah, the woman who saved my son, and me, in the process." Everyone toasted with tears in their eyes. 6 months after the wedding, Aaliyah discovered she was pregnant again. This time, Marcus was at every medical appointment, held her hand during every ultrasound. And when their daughter was born in February of the following year, a perfect baby with Aaliyah's eyes and Marcus's smile, they named her Leah Valentina Limtan. Leah for the baby, Aaliyah thought she had lost. Valentina because, despite everything, Celine had been part of the story that had brought them together. Chloe adored her new little sister, and Ethan, now a year and a half old, looked at her with that precious childlike curiosity. "We're a big family," Chloe said one afternoon as they were all in the garden. "Weird but big. The best kind of family," Aaliyah agreed, with Leah in her arms and Ethan playing at her feet. Marcus hugged her from behind, kissing her head. "Do you remember that night when you knocked on my door offering help?" "Every day. It was the night everything changed. It was the night a millionaire baby wouldn't eat anything, and a cleaner gave him breast milk, and he was saved. But not only was he saved, we all were." Aaliyah turned to look at him. "Do you think Celine is doing well?" "I hope so. I received a message from her a month ago. She's engaged to an architect from Bali. She seems happy, or at least at peace. I'm glad for her. You have too generous a heart." "No, I just understand that we're all doing the best we can with what we have. Celine lost her baby. I got mine back. Life is strange that way." That night, after putting the 3 children to bed, Marcus and Aaliyah sat on their bedroom balcony, looking at the stars over Singapore. "Did you ever imagine your life would be like this?" Marcus asked. "Never, not in my wildest dreams. 2 years ago, I was cleaning houses, pregnant and alone. Now I'm married to the man I love. I have 3 beautiful children. I live in a mansion. It's surreal. Are you happy?" Aaliyah thought about it for a moment. She thought of all the pain she had gone through, the loss, the grief, the humiliation. But she also thought of Ethan laughing, of Chloe calling her Mummy Aaliyah, of Leah sleeping peacefully in her crib, of Marcus, her husband, her partner, her love. "I am more than happy. I am complete." Marcus kissed her, and in that kiss, there were promises of mornings together, of challenges they would face united, of love that would grow with the years, because in the end, the story had never been about a millionaire baby who wouldn't eat. It had been about finding family in the most unexpected places, about love that transcends biology, about second chances and intertwined destinies. It had been about a woman who lost everything and found more than she ever dreamed, and about a man who had everything and discovered he had nothing until he found true love. That night, as Singapore slept and the stars shone over the mansion in Sentosa Cove, the Limtan family rested in peace, complete, healed, and finally home.